Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Um, some of you might be able to hear me. Why some will not be able? Please, I would like to have an indication if you guys can hear me loud and clear. I would like to see some indications if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. So, good afternoon to everybody. If you can see me, home and abroad, regardless of where you're joining us from, I use this medium to welcome each and every one of us to the 5 months training on web development. Actually, this training is going to take, it's a 5 months training that would span through January, February, March, April, May. We'll start today by giving ourselves the basic understanding of what the web is all about. Regardless of where you're joining us from, the training will be taken for just 1 hour 30 minutes. It's a 1 hour 30 minutes training starting from today. Our expectations at the end of this training is to be a competent and a sought after web developer, being able to use the skill we are going to acquire to further our career objectives, to sort out for jobs or start up our own enterprise. And I pray at the end of it all, we would have the necessary needed to be competitive in the current global market. I will start by congratulating each and every one of you for participating in this training. We are still expecting some other students while this training kicks off, and some has reached out to me and pleaded that they would join later today. This class is very important, and after the training we'll take some questions and answers, and the material has already been sent to the classroom for those of you who has already joined the classroom. The classroom is an avenue whereby every resource, every tool, every material needed to be able to complete this training will be provided, and the links for you to rewatch each and every classes we take will also be provided on that classroom at the end of every classes. So if you go to the classroom, you will see the material. There's the Google Classroom. The material is currently available. If you can have access to it, I would want you to indicate by now. Just wave if you can access it. If you can access the classroom, if you're already available on the classroom, I want you to indicate. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Please, I would like everybody to drop their hands. You can only raise your hands if you have questions. Please drop your hands. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's begin the class properly, and to avoid the lag, I will turn off my screen, so my camera rather, so that it will prevent lag. It will prevent the screen from lagging. So I will turn off my screen for now. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to raise your hands and ask questions. So we'll start by introducing ourselves to the web. We'll start by understanding www. I believe each and every one of us who are present here, if today is the first time ever you will hear the word www, can you please raise your hand? If today is the first time ever in your existence you're hearing the word www being put together, I would like you to raise your hand. Okay? If you've heard it before, if you've heard the word before, I would like to hear from you. What do you think the word www stands for? From your own perspective, what does the word www stand for? Anybody, please. Anybody? Anybody? Okay. Captain Sardina Johnson, can I hear from your own perspective? What does the word www stand for? You can unmute yourself and explain. Thank you. I can see Captain Sardina Steve Johnson. Let's start from you. What does the word www stand from your own perspective, from your own perception? What does the word stand for? I would like to hear you. Please unmute. Are you having problem unmuting? Okay. Okay. Or he said it means well. Okay. Someone else, please. Okay. Can you unmute and please tell us what does WW stand for from your own perspective? Thank you. I can see Mr. Daniel Adeola. Can you please explain from your own perception what does the word www stand for? Or is it me? I can't hear you, please. Hello, sir. We are waiting for you.
www means World Wide Web.
Okay. Now, in a layman term, as in, what does it mean? As in, what does it stand for? What can you define it to be? As a layman. Let's consider yourself as a layman. What do you see it as?
Okay, if I believe it's a link to the web.
Okay, okay. It's a link to the web. Okay, Captain Sardina, can I hear you, please? Can I hear you? What does WW stand for? As in, define it. If someone comes to you today and say, what does this WW, World Wide Web, what does it mean? How do you explain to the person that the person would understand from your own perception? Okay, I believe the audio from Captain Sardina is not okay for now because I can't hear you if he's speaking. Okay, Ifeanyi, can I hear you, please? Can I hear you? The reason why I'm asking this is for me to know where you stand currently. So by the time we move deeper into it, you will get a full light of what these things means and why they exist. Okay. Okay, he said is a subdomain where website content is hosted. It's a subdomain where website content is hosted. From your explanation, I will say it's an integral part of what the World Wide Web really stands for, but it is not what the real World Wide Web really is. So let's start by breaking it down into layman terms. First and foremost, I'll start by showing you some images, and I want you to put either in the income message or you unmute yourself. Everybody, please, let's have an open class. So if I said it's a system of interconnected public web page through the internet, okay, that's lovely. So I'll be showing some images, and I want you guys to tell me what those images stands for. So the first image you're seeing, who can tell me what does this image stand for? So Daniel Guari said it's a spider web. Okay, that's lovely. And before the existence of the World Wide Web, which came into the public domain in early 90s, we've had the web. That's this spider web you're seeing here. We've had it since the time of creation, for centuries. So if it has been existing before now, why is the web, the one we currently have today, which is the World Wide Web, why is it named after this? So the next image I'll be showing you here is the web itself. Now, who can tell me what is the relationship between the first image and this second image? What do they have in common? The first image and the second image. Who can tell us what is their relationship? What do they have in common? You can unmute yourself or you send message. Okay. Captain Sardina said interconnectivity. That's lovely. I need someone else. Interconnectivity. That's lovely. And that's what I'm looking for. They are interconnected. They are interconnected with each other. That's what they have in relation. And what you're seeing here is the logo that we use to represent the web in different form. But what you're seeing after it, this next logo, is the web itself. Everything you're seeing from the client to the server, including the internet, is what we call the web. You might have heard a lot of people, even the whites, saying when they want to make search, they check the internet. Yes, the internet is important, but it's like a portion of the web. It's not the web itself. Everything you're seeing from this client, internet, and server all together is what makes the web. It's what makes what we call today WWW, World Wide Web. So let's get in details. What is the web? So if I'm to give you the generally accepted definition, the World Wide Web, commonly known as the web, that's in a short form, we call it the web, is an information system where documents and other web resources are identified by uniform resource locator, which we call URL, or search engines, which may be interlinked by hypertext and are accessible over the internet through the web browser. Now this is the general accepted definition, but don't worry, I will break them down. They might be so robust. I will break them down in chunks so that we understand. And if you see, there are some texts that are being highlighted in bold text. Each and every aspect of these texts, I'm going to share light on them. The World Wide Web, commonly known as the web, is an information system where documents and other web resources are identified by uniform resource locator, which we call the URL. That's in short form, we call it URL. So you break the word URL down, it means uniform resource locator. Or search engines. That means when you want to identify resources on the web, you will either use your uniform resource locator or you use a search engine, which may be interlinked by hypertext and are accessible over the internet through the web browser. This is the general definition of the web. Now, let me break it down. The web is a global information infrastructure. Now, look at the word. A global information infrastructure. Let's take that word, global information infrastructure, and dissect it. Now, let me ask you guys, in general, when you hear the word infrastructure, what comes to your mind? When you hear the word infrastructure, you can unmute yourself and speak, or you put it in the chat box. When you hear the word infrastructure, what comes to your mind? What is the first thing that pops into your head when you hear the word infrastructure? Oh yeah, I'm waiting for a response. Can someone tell us what infrastructure means to them as a layman? I'm waiting. Can someone please tell us what the word infrastructure means? You can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand, or you drop a message in the, okay, Captain Sadina, I think there's a problem with your audio. Captain Steve, I think there's a problem with your audio. I think there's a problem with your audio. So you can drop a message in the in-call messages. Okay. Okay. If I says in a common language, it means building. If I said in common language, it means building. Can someone else shed light? I need another idea. I need another idea. Another person, please. Captain Steve, let's hear you. I think there's a problem with your audio. You can drop it in the in-call message. What does the word infrastructure means? What does the word infrastructure mean? So if you check Oxford Dictionary for the meaning of infrastructure, Oxford Dictionary states that the infrastructure is the physical system and network that supports the functioning of a business, region, or nation. So in a layman term, I can tell you that infrastructure simply means something built for the benefit of humanity. When we build something to help human achieve some certain goals, it is called an infrastructure. When governments build hospitals, we call it medical infrastructure, built for health care, for creating health care. Those things are referred to as infrastructure. When governments build roads, it also referred to as infrastructure. So anything that is built for the benefit of humanity are referred to as an infrastructure. But the web is a global information infrastructure, meaning the case study of the web is sharing information across the world, regardless of your location on planet Earth. You will be able to receive and transmit and receive information. So the web is a global information infrastructure. It can also be considered as a universal library. Gone are the days people, when we are searching for information, once upon a time, the only place you get informations are physical library. I can tell you this for free. People of these days no longer use library. In short, in most communities, we no longer have public library. The children of this generation do not know what the walls of library looks like, because they don't access libraries. If I ask most of you today, as we are having this meeting now, when last did you visit a physical library? When last did you visit a physical library? Many of you don't even have access to a physical library. Why? Because the web has made it more easy for us to get information and resources without the need to go to a physical building to access that same information and resource. Before early 90s, if I want to get the story of, let's say I want to know the history of China, of the history of Russia, I have to go to a physical library, maybe in my school or in my community. I go there, I go through the shelves and look for this book. Then I sit down to read. And the only thing I have as access is if I can borrow the book, whereby I have to record it with the librarian. They'll allow me to take it out. But today, I can be in my restroom or on my bed using my devices, maybe a laptop or a smartphone, even a smartwatch, and I can search these things online and I will get the results. All of these are made possible through the World Wide Web. So the World Wide Web end up becoming a global library, a universal library that can be accessed by anybody, everywhere and anywhere. And also is a collection of web servers. You can see that I highlighted the web servers. That one, we will discuss it as well later. But before I move ahead, do anybody have any question regarding what we've discussed so far? Do anybody have any question? Questions, please. Yes, we are recording this class. The class is being recorded. and at the end of it all, it will be sent across to all participants. Thank you. Any other questions, please? Questions? Can I move on? Okay, let's move to the next slide. Now, from what we have in the previous slide, if you could recall, there are some texts that I highlight in bold. I made them bold, and I told you that I would explain them one after the other. I would go through them one after the other, and that's what I'm about to do. So let's start with the first one, which is Uniform Resource Locator. So what's a Uniform Resource Locator? In short, URL. I believe many of us would have heard the word URL. What does it stand for? The word URL simply means Uniform Resource Locator. So what's a Uniform Resource Locator? These are words of patterns. These are words of pattern used to refer to a website. In other words, they are called domain names. That name given to a particular website, in order for you to be able to access it, is what we call a URL, or you call it a domain name. Captain Steve, do you have any question? Please, can you drop the hand if there is no question? Please, can you drop the hand if there is no questions? Thank you. So the word URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator, meaning it's the name given to a website that allows you to access that website is what we call a URL. So examples of URL, examples of Uniform Resource Locators are www.sitename.com. That is a complete URL. HTTP or HTTPS, which I will still discuss later, whether it has HTTP or HTTPS. All of these things you're seeing on my display are called URL. To you visiting a website as a client, it's a URL. But to the people who owns the website, they will consider it as a domain name. What do I call it? They will consider it as a domain name. So if I own a website today, maybe I have a website called runcloud.com.ng. Because I'm the owner of that website, to me it's a domain name. But to people who will be visiting it, who will be using it to access resources I put online, they will refer to it as a URL, a Uniform Resource Locator. Any question before I move further? Any question before I move further? So let's continue. Now, what's the anatomy of a URL? Let's break down the URL. What does each and every part of a URL means, and what do they stand for? Let's start by analyzing the first section. Either HTTP or HTTPS. It means Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And with the S means Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secured, meaning the URL is secure. I will break them down. Sometimes it comes with www. Whether with www or without www, they are all regarded as a transfer scheme. So what's the job of the HTTP, HTTPS? This is what is responsible from taking the resource you are about to see on a website and display it on your browser. It copies all of the documents that you see on a web page, or you access, or you download, or you have access to from the server where it is stored to you, the client. The HTTP is what is responsible for doing that. That's why it is called the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, the transfer scheme. After that, we have what we call the subdomain and the domain. Let me explain the domain before I explain the subdomain, and I will give you examples. The domain is the exact name of the website that belongs to the website. I want you guys to give me examples of a domain name. Please type it on the, you can unmute yourself and speak, or you type it on the income message. Please, I need you guys to put in different domain names. Let's see if you guys are following me. So there are different forms of domain names. I want you guys to give me examples. Okay, I'm having a question here. Captain Steve Sardina said, why does HTTP even come in the picture when it is not secured? Now, that's a very valid question. However, I will just shed the light a little here. As we move further down the line, you will see the reason why it is important. Well, to begin with, when you are building a website, or you launch your website at the first instance during launch, your URL will not be secured. And that's because the World Wide Web Consortium, who are in charge of securing the web, or let me put it in this way, regulating the web, they have not scanned through your website. So when they scan through your website, checking each and every file, each and every document, pictures, videos that you have uploaded on that website, their job is to scan through and make sure that they are free from virus. Once they've done this scanning and they discover that it is free from virus, that is when they will make it secure. So they will always sell to you something we call SSL certification, which we will soon talk about. I will just breeze you a little about it. When we get to hosting, I will share more light. So the only time your website URL will become secure is when you have purchased the SSL certification, meaning you are paying them to come and scan through your website and check if there is any malicious or content that contains virus or viruses. So if they have not gone through that check, your S will not exist yet. The S there will not exist. So it will only exist when they have gone through the scanning. So they will ask you to come and pay for the SSL, for the confirmation certification that they will now put. If not, if they have not done that scan, whenever anybody wants to visit your site, they will always show them warning that this site might be corrupted because they have not given you the certification of them scanning through. So that is the flaw of not having your website secured. And I see more on the prompt. I see .com.ng.org. So what you just sent to the is what we call domain extension. The .com.ng is the next thing I will be talking about. .net. Those are extensions. Those are not domain names. Those are domain extensions. Google.com is a domain name. Wikipedia.org is a domain name. All of these things being listed are domain names. But the .com.ng, .org, .net, .edu, .gov, .mil, which stand for military, and domain extension, I will still get there. But the one we are talking about is the name itself. Run Cloud. We have various Lagos State government, Facebook, Twitter, which is now X, Pinterest. All of those names associated to a website are called domain names. Now, what is a subdomain? Or what does the word subdomain stand for? And what are their uses? Hope you guys get it clear about the domain name. Let's go to the subdomain. Now, when a company who produces a certain service or a certain product decided to go into another industry, instead of them creating multiple domain, they can create an extraction from their domain to create a subdomain. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Can you guys see my screen? Exactly, mail.google.com. That's a subdomain. Now, let's say we go to the word google.com. Now, this is a URL. To Google, who owns it, it's called a domain name. But for me, using it now, it will be called a URL. If I go here to this www.google.com, this is what I will see. Give it a minute, it's loading. This is google.com. This is their official URL, their official domain. But you guys will agree with me that Google have different other products that they do. So instead of creating separate domain, they create a sub, an extract of that their main domain. And in the place, there's something called calendar.google.com. Now, this calendar is a subdomain because it's an extract of the main domain, which is called Google. Wait, let me say Google Calendar. So you can see it here, https calendar.google.com. This is a subdomain of Google. It is known as a subdomain because they created an extract from the real word, which is Google, which is the domain, and use it to create another website called calendar. So let's say me as a person, I have a website called olugbengaremond.com, and what I do is I'm a trainer in the tech space. I train people in tech space. And tomorrow, I decided to go into oil and gas. Or I decided to go into logistics. Instead of me creating a website called olugbengaremondlogistics.com, I can create a subdomain for my main domain, which show that that new industry I am venturing into belongs to me. So instead of creating too much domain that will cost me more to buy, I can create what we call a subdomain. Meaning, okay, this is me, but this is other industry I work in. So I can create something like logistics.olugbengaremond.com. I can also decide that, okay, I want to create, I can also say, okay, I want to create oil and gas.olugbengaremond.com. Can you see? So all of those words before the real domain, which is olugbengaremond.com, are called subdomain. Those one before the dot, olugbengaremond.com, are subdomains. The actual domain is the Olugbenga Raymond, but the subdomain are the ones that comes after. So like here, you can see that Google has something called Google Docs. So if I come here and say Google Docs, or Google Slides, or Google Words, or Classroom, or Workspace, you can see Docs. This is Google Docs. All of these are subdomain of Google. They are not the actual domain. The actual domain is google.com. The docs are subdomain of Google. Do anybody have question regarding this before I move ahead? So, like you can see, now this is a different website entirely, which is now different from the actual website that we displayed prior. Do we understand? So in a nutshell, this is a subdomain. So whatsoever come, it will always be separated with a dot before the actual domain are known as subdomain. Exactly, just like folders and files, yes. But there's a difference. As captain, there's a difference. The difference between it is that the folders and file in web development is what we call subdirectories. But a subdomain is a different website entirely that you created. The website is totally different from the initial website. If you have files and folder in an existing website, we call it subdirectories, which I will get to. But subdomain, I create a website called olugbengaremond.com, and tomorrow I decided to create a different website. So instead of buying a separate domain from it, I can create a subdomain for my domain to be associated to that new website. So that's the difference between a domain and a subdomain. Captain, do you get it now? Or you need further explanation? Any other question? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, beyond that, we have what we call domain extensions. And that's where your .com, .ng, .org, .gov, .mil, .net comes in play. These are what we call domain extensions. How is it a domain extension? It is a domain extension because they are being attached to the actual domain. They are subjected to the actual domain. .com.ng, .com.ng is a subdomain. And why does it exist? Let me give you scenarios. Let's say I decided to start up a company here in Nigeria, and I decided to call it Run Cloud. Somebody somewhere else, maybe in the US or in Canada or in Singapore, might decide to create their own website, and they decided to call it Run Cloud as well. Which means if I, that currently exists here in Nigeria, buys the Run Cloud, the other person can no longer have access to it. And let's say they've gone through the process of registering their business already in their country of residence. That means their website name will now be different. So because of this, they create different categories of subdomains that the person cannot use to create multiple websites. So if me am bearing.com here in Nigeria, somebody can be bearing.net in another country. somebody can be bearing .org in another country. So it gives room for people to diversify with different extensions. However, there are risks attached to it. As a corporate entity, or if you are to build a website for a corporate business, I would advise that every domain that exists to that business must be bought. It's an advice, because it gives room for scammers. When scammers want to steal, what they do is they replicate that subdomain, that they create by that same domain, and just change the subdomain. Okay, look at my own. I have .com.ng. They can go and buy something like .co.za or .xyz. So if they buy that, people might think they are accessing my website because it bears the same name, Run Cloud. But in reality, they are accessing a different website. So that's the risk attached to it. And again, this is an eye-opener to everybody who is existing on this training. When you visit, when government, because I have seen this as a lot of scam, when government parastatals wants to run any program and it is being mentioned that it is the government that are about to do this particular thing, please and please, I'm begging you, always check the extension. If it does not have .gov, for Nigeria it's .gov.ng. For other government, for US government it's just .gov. But for other government like Canada now it's .gov.ca. For United Kingdom it's .gov.uk. If you don't see this subdomain extension .gov in any URL, like I can see currently now, people are saying the Ministry of Interior is doing a recruitment, and they are not sending you a different website that is different from their actual website. And again, please, when any ministry in any government parastatal are doing any empowerment or recruitment, they will always post it on their official website, even though they create a sub website for that. It will always, at least on their blog, it will be there. So be mindful of the subdomain that you access. Some are there to just steal your details and use it for fraudulent activities. Do we understand that? Do we understand that? So scammers can make use of different websites just to steal from people. Any question before I move further? Any question before I move further? How do we make money from domains? Okay, the way for you to make money from domain is, I've seen people do this a lot, but I can tell you it is by luck. And I can recommend a movie for you to see where such a thing happened, and it has been happening. There are some catchy names that some people are well prone to. Catchy names. The names are very catchy, meaning they see it as prospect of names people will use in the future. So what they do is they buy these names already, maybe years before. They buy them and they pay the name, domain name, expecting that it's a gamble, it's an high risk gamble, expecting that in the nearest future a big business will come and want to use that name. All they do is to pay to them for reselling. That's all they do. But beyond that, there's no way you can make money directly from your domain name, except you can buy and keep and expect somebody tomorrow that want that exact name, and you bid her. Yes, I've seen people pay millions of dollars for just a domain name. I can send you a movie. It's called Silicon Valley. It's a series movie. It's called Silicon Valley. It's on Netflix. You can watch it. Where they decided to set up a company called Pi Papa, and somebody already took that name. So the person bought the name at, I think, around $10 or thereabouts, but they bought it back from the person around $2,000 or thereabouts. So you can go and check it online. You see where such a scenario will come. But beyond that, there's no other way I can think of for now that you can use to make money from your domain. Otherwise, you pay to own a domain. Now, any other thing after this subdomain are known as subdirectories. Because on a website, the first page you see when you type a website like www.rockcloud.com.ng, the first page you see is called the landing page. But there might be other page attached to it, like the About Us, Contact Us, or even files that you will download. All of those are known as subdirectories. They are sub-files attached to that domain file. They are known as subdirectories. Do we have any question? Any question before I move further in this class? With no further ado, let's move on. Now, the next thing I want us to talk about is search engine. And I believe we've all heard of this word, search engine. So can you guys put in the income messages, to you, what is a search engine? Or you tell us what a search engine is. What is a search engine? What is a search engine? If you know or you have an idea of it, let's see it in the income messages. What's a search engine to you? While waiting, I will just move ahead and explain. When you go to the library, I consider a search engine as a librarian. Why? When you go to the library and you're looking for a particular document or a resource, but you're unable to locate it, what you do is to approach the librarian and say, librarian, no, I'm looking for so and so document. Can you locate it for me? Now, it's the job of the librarian to scan through all his record and see if that exact file exists. And if it exists, they check and send to you. They bring it out for you. But if it's not, that's the same thing a search engine does. I call them the librarian of the web. I call them the librarian of the web. So let's put it in common sense. SEO is an optimized website visibility online. Is this a question or you're giving an idea? What I'm saying is search engine, not SEO. SEO means search engine optimization. We'll talk about that later. That's strictly on search engine. Please, I don't like the fact that I can't hear voices. Hearing voices give me more room to understand that you guys are following. But I believe some of us are having audio problems. Please, let's try and fix this thing. Because being part of this class helps us a lot. Your words gives me more idea on what you understand and what you don't understand. So I would like us to have an audio path. Turn on your audio while accessing this class, please. So let me move further. So search engines. These are tools on the web used to locate search keywords or phrases. Meaning, when you're searching for a particular resource online, but you don't know which website owns that resource at that particular time, what do you do? What do? You make use of a search engine. Example of search engine: your Google, your Bing, your Yahoo, your Badu, your DuckDuckGo, and many others. I know before now, the only one most of you know is Google. Beyond Google or Google, there are many other search engines. But the notable one that we all are aware of is Google. But there are many other search engines that exist. Google, Bing, Yahoo, Badu, DuckDuckGo, Yandex, Ask.com, and many others. All of these are search engines. But the notable one is Google. So how do this search engine work? Let's say I want to look for a particular resource. Let's say I want to search for the history of China. But I don't know which websites have the history of China. All I need to do is to go to google.com and come to their search engine here. This is the search engine. And all I need to do is to say history of China, or whatsoever information you want. Once you search it, what Google will do is to surf the web, go and meet different servers, collect different results from different websites, and list them out to you. Just like what you're seeing. You can see it lists one as a top priority, which is Wikipedia, meaning this resource exists in wikipedia.org. And if you scroll down, you will see there's something called aventor.com. If you scroll, there are YouTube videos. There's another one called bitnamica.com. And if you scroll, there's history.com. There's sciencedirect.com. There's amazon.com. Now, excuse me, what Google search engine does is to go online and look for different websites that have information related to what you ask for, and show them, all of them, to you, and giving you the opportunity to select by yourself which one best meets your need. Like if I say, okay, I want to check from history.com, I can just click on this. But if that's not what I want, I can scroll down again to aventor.com, regardless of the resource I want. Do we understand? That's how search engine works. That is how a search engine works. Let's move ahead. Let's talk about a web browser. What's a web browser? Now, this is on the client side. A web browser, these are tools or applications used for accessing web resources. The purpose of a web browser is to read web resources and display them. Without these tools, you cannot have access to the web. Without a web browser, you cannot have access to the web. So the web browser is an integral aspect of web development. Without it, nobody can access the web. So these are tools or applications used for accessing web resources. The purpose of a web browser is to read web resources and display them. That's their job. Their job is to read web resources and display them. Without a web browser, you cannot have access to the web. Example of web browsers: we have Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Opera, and many others. All of these things I just stated are what we call browsers. These are applications or softwares you need to install on your devices. You need to install them in order for you to be able to access all of the web resources that are available. Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Opera, and Internet Explorer. They are called the web browser. They are the software, they are the applications you install on your device. Now, let's come to the misconception of the web, which is the internet. I believe we have all fallen victim of this. Even the whites, they fall victim of this. The creators of the web fall victim of this. When we want to, maybe we're in an argument state, we're arguing with something about something. You didn't watch that match yesterday. I didn't watch. Man United won the game now. It's a lie. Go and check internet. We've all been an acquaintance to this misconception. Whenever somebody say internet, we automatically consider it to be the web. But in reality, the internet is not the web. If you could remember the diagram I showed you before, which is this diagram, everything from the client to the internet to the server is what we call the web together. Everything is the World Wide Web. No one is exempted from the other. There is no web without the internet. There is no web without the server. And there is no web without the client. So they are interrelated. But what we do is to take one aspect of it to define the web. The internet is not the web. And we keep reiterating, it's just a subset of the web. It is not the web. So what is internet? The internet serves as a means of communication of multiple computers, including clients and servers globally. The internet serves as a means of communication of multiple computers, including client and server globally. It is your internet connection you have on your device that enables you to be able to join me in this meeting that we're having now. Without the internet, you won't be able to join us in this class, in this training that we are having. The internet is an enabler. It's what enables you to be able to access or communicate with me. And it is what enables me to be able to share this information with you. There is no connection or communication without the internet. And the internet on its own does not serve as the web. So it's a means of communication. It is not the web. So that misconception that I want to look for something, I'll go and check internet. You can say I will check online, but using the word internet, meaning you are trying to check if you have internet connection, maybe you have data. That's what you mean. Because you can only have internet if it is being provided by your ISP. The full meaning of ISP, your internet service provider, which are people like MTN, Glo, Airtel, Etisalat, 9Mobile, and the likes. These people are your ISPs, your internet service provider. They are not, I repeat, they are not the web. They are what gives you or grants you access to the web. Any question before I move further? Captain Steve, do you have any question? Miss Abiola, the female in our midst, do you have any question? Okay, let me hear you. Let me hear you. You can unmute yourself, or you put a call in, you put the message.
No question, sir. No question, no question.
Okay, thank you. You can mute yourself back. Thank you. So I believe we all understand all of these things. They are separate, but combined, they mean something. They are separate, but combined, they mean something. Let's move further. What's a web server? Now remember I said I will mention web server. Now you can see we've talked about internet, and we know client and you and me accessing the server. Now what's a web server? Let's go into that. What's a web server? The web server is a server software or device used for storing web resources, which can be accessible by users via the internet using a web browser. All of the informations we are able to access online, any resource you can see or download or upload or access online, are stored in a place or in a component or in a device called the web server. So this web server can either be a server software or a device used for storing web resources, which can be accessible via the user using internet, via the internet using a web browser. The primary function of a web server, the main job of a web server, is to store, process, and deliver web resources to clients. That's their job. Their job is to store web resources, process it when it is needed, and deliver it to the client. That's their job. Now, the communication between the server and the client takes place using what we call HTTP, which we call the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That is what is responsible from taking the information stored or the resources stored in a web server and deliver it to the client, which is people viewing the resources. Any question before I move further? So anybody who is able to see anything online are accessing those things from a web server, because they are stored from in a web server through internet connection, because the server is always there. You are only using the internet. Without internet connectivity, there will be no resource to display. So all of this thing you're seeing, this is how common server looks like. These are server rooms look like. These are where all of the resources, the informations you get. If I upload this thing now online and I say go and watch it, that video you're watching, where it is being stored is on a device like this. These are what we call web servers. Let's proceed. Now, the next thing we will talk about is web resources. What's a web resource? These are files and documents that are accessible on the web. Anything you can access, upload, download, display, preview on the web are known as web resources. If you can take me as a human being and access me through the web, I become a web resource. So, example of web resources: web pages, images, documents, videos, audios, and many others. All of these things that you can see, access from the web, are known as web resources. So if I can access Abiola on the web, she becomes a web resource. If I can access Daniel Guari from the web, he becomes a web resource. If I can access Captain Steve from the web, It becomes a web resource. If I can accept Mr. Daniel Adiola from the web, it becomes a web resource. So anything you can access on the web, or you yourself can put into the web using your web browser, becomes a web resource. Now, the main idea why you are here is based on the tools used in creating web resources. That is what you are all here to learn. That's the essence of these classes. What are the tools, and how can you also create web resources that people can access? The tools are as follows: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, MySQL, and etc. There is a whole lot of tools. But for the next 5 months, we'll focus basically on these three because they are the ones used in Frontend: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The three core languages we'll be focusing on for the next 5 months: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. From our next class, we'll start by explaining what HTML is, how we can get started. Then we'll move into CSS, we'll move into JavaScript, we'll talk about Bootstrap, different libraries and frameworks, and we integrate them together. At the end of the 5 months, we'll take a break. After the break, we'll begin the second section of the training, which is the backend development, where we'll talk about PHP, MySQL, and other frameworks, and many other, and even we'll go to the extent of deploying a complete website, building e-commerce, custom websites that are going to be top-notch applications. So this is what you're here for. Any question before we call today a day? Because we have come to the end of today's section of your introduction to web development. Any question, please? This is the best time for you to ask me question. So Captain Steve just asked me, what about the front-end frameworks? Yes, we are going to be taking series of frameworks. We are going to be doing a library called React. React is actually not a framework, it's a library. Currently, if you check on Google Trend, the most used library when it comes to front-end development is React. It's a JavaScript library. We'll also be working with Bootstrap and also Tailwind CSS. Those are libraries and frameworks that we will be using throughout this 5 months, that will make you a proficient web developer. What about Angular? Like I say, there are different forms of frameworks and libraries, but we will not delve into everything, because if we are to take them down one after the other, 3 years to come, we are still in this class. But this is what we will do. The fundamentals that you need in order for you to be able to use these tools are what we will begin with, which is HTML, CSS, most importantly JavaScript, because JavaScript is an Angular is a framework of JavaScript. Vue is a framework of JavaScript. React.js is a library. Next.js is a framework of JavaScript, and many others. So when you talk about framework, there is a pool. We cannot do everything. My job as an instructor is to introduce you to the fundamental, from basic to intermediary to advanced. As a student, if you want to take that, if you check on Google Trend or any other trend, you will see that The most used library or framework today is React Native, React JS. So that's what I'll be taking you on. But if you choose to go into Angular, the knowledge you'll be having when we get to JavaScript is enough for you to start on Angular. But on this training, we will focus on React JS. Did I answer your question? More questions, please. Now, backend is after the 5 months when we are done. There we will talk about PHP, MySQL. We'll even do a little bit of regular expression. We'll do Laravel. We'll also go into Node.js, Express.js. The backend comprises of even Git and GitHub, deployments, that version control system. That will take us another 5 to 6 months. But this one is the first version, which is 5 months, which will be ending in May. Okay, I'll put that under consideration. But for now, when it comes to popularity or what is popular there in terms of demand, JavaScript is what everybody uses mostly when it comes to web development, both front-end and back-end, followed by PHP and what have you. Yes, Java can be used for web. Please, there's a difference between Java and JavaScript. And this is one of the assignments I'll be giving you today. They are both different. The case study of JavaScript is for web, while the case study of Java is for app development, software development, like mobile app, desktop app. So they all have what they are based on. Otherwise, rather, they can also be used interchangeably for different fields, but they have their core focus. Did I answer your question as captain? We'll talk about that later, but let's begin with this first. Any question? We are getting close to the end of today's class. I would like to get questions from my audience. You can unmute yourself if you have questions, or you put it in the chat box, just like Captain Steve has done. Yes, thanks. Request is based on TPay. Okay, I understand that. May the T not paying us too much. Any other question? Okay. We have come to the end of today's class. In our next class, we'll be introducing ourselves to the web page structure. We'll be starting with introduction to HTML. And here we will understand basically why HTML was created and what it can be used for. So with no other question, this class is being recorded. At the end of today's training, a link will be sent to us. And the link to the classroom has been sent, where you can have access to the course material. The course material is made available if you all go to the Google Classroom. Let me refresh so I can show you the course material. The course material is made available on your stream. You can go through your stream. You will see the course material there, and update of the recording of this class will be sent here and here only. So whenever you come to the classroom, all of the necessary information you need to be part of the training will be submitted here. So I will oblige us to be part of this meeting, to be part of this classroom where you assess the material and your quiz questions to answer, your assignments and what have you. With no further ado, I will stop this training for today and we continue same time next class. And you can see it's almost exactly 4:30, which is the promised time frame of 1 hour 30 minutes for every class. And I promise not to exceed this time frame. And if you can see, that's the exact time frame we used to complete this class. So except we have other questions, with no further question, I'll say bye for now to all students and see you in the next class. Thank you very much. Thank you all.